Hello everyone, I am William, the creator of Flip and Friends. I've been making this series for about a year now, so I thought it would be fun to go back over the past year and share with you some fun facts and behind the scenes details from these episodes. Starting off with the first episode, A National Pastime, where I noticed that I messed up the punchline right before the episode was set to air. I said couch surfing, but it was meant to be channel surfing. I figured the joke still worked, so I didn't change it at the time, but I did opt to fix it when I redubbed the episode for the compilation. Also, my arms got really tired while recording this episode, especially when puppeteering Felix on the notebook, which is why the ground is present in most later episodes. The Bait Ball was an episode that was uploaded and ready to air, but I ultimately decided to pull it before it went live. This episode was about how cetaceans in real life corral schooling fish to make them easier to eat, with the episode being about how the schooling fish don't enjoy how stressful that practice is. I decided that the episode was too dark in tone, especially considering that it would have been the third ever episode, so I decided to pull it, and its lore has since been retconned. I've re-uploaded it, but kept it unlisted. Link in the description. The Pumpkin is one of my favorite early episodes, mainly because it's very silly. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't seem to agree with me, as the algorithm didn't push it, and it's currently the least viewed episode of the entire series. Unjustly so, if you ask me. Clearance Candy is also one of my favorite early episodes, as I feel it's one of my most inspired ideas. Clearly you agree with me, since it became my first very successful video and is currently tied with Hot Chocolate for the most new subscribers at 19. Again, I cannot thank you enough. The doctor visit was made as a direct follow-up to Clearance Candy, and is the main reason I haven't done any follow-ups since. I felt with Clearance Candy's success it needed a sequel, but I didn't have any ideas of where to take the story, so I ended up settling on the video we have now. I'm just glad I was able to give it a worthy follow-up in the return later on. Delays is one of a handful of videos that basically retell a story that actually happened to me, albeit with some exaggeration for the sake of storytelling. Later examples of this include Study Tactic, The Upgrade, and Reading Whales. During the production of Winter Storm, I decided to change how I record my audio. Before this, I would record the audio while filming using the camera mic. However, for this video, I had to shoot outside where I knew picking up my voice would be next to impossible, so I dubbed the lines later. For this dub, I used my proper microphone, and the quality difference was so great that I've used that mic to record audio from then on. For reference, here's what Winter Storm used to sound like with the camera mic.
I just got a weather alert. There's a winter storm on the way.
And here's what it sounds like when I redubbed it for the compilation.
I just got a weather alert. There's a winter storm on the way.
High Fashion was inspired by an article I came across that said many orcas in Puget Sound were wearing salmon as hats, so I took that idea and ran with it. For the vision, the Russian comes from my dad's college Russian course, where, as the story goes, the teaching assistants would create toy sentences that were designed to test the students' vocabulary, even if they were a far cry from normal conversation. Chieta Slon was one that stuck with my dad as being particularly silly. It translates to, "Whose elephant is this?" Taxes was inspired by Mira Arty in the comments. They suggested Walter turning to face the camera would make for a good punchline, and my brain figured the best use of a fourth wall break like that would be for Walter to intimidate the viewer into paying their taxes. And the rest is history. In At the Ministry, the form being used is a reference to IP addresses, where 127.0.0.1 always refers to the local computer, so I figured it made sense as a code for an ID card form. Well done to True Indie Media in the comments for catching on to this. No Fooling was the first appearance of Sally, who was inspired by Your Worst Nightmare's comment asking about a loan shark character. This was also the first episode released after YouTube changed how Shorts views work. Long story short, at the start of April, views on Shorts became how many people YouTube decided to show the video to, and the number of people who actually stayed and watched the video, what views used to be, became only visible to creators. All to say, if you notice Shorts getting more views since April, that's part of the reason why. Game Night was another episode that I completed but ended up scrapping before it went public. The episode revolved around Walter getting frustrated over a game of Monopoly. I decided to pull it because I found it was too mean-spirited and not all that funny, so I completely rewrote it into the short that actually got released, Poker Face. Like with the Bait Ball, I've re-uploaded it but kept it unlisted. Link in the description. Hot Chocolate was the first baking with brownie recipe that I botched. Long story short, the recipe was based off the Binging with Babish Santa Claus episode, but I misread the recipe and added far too much cocoa powder. The end result was a bitter and clumpy mess, so I decided to adjust the recipe a bit and reshoot the entire thing. Needless to say, that was a very good decision. Hiccups is another episode that got cut deep into production. The episode is based on how, in my experience at least, the most reliable cure for hiccups is just to believe that some cure works. So the episode is about Walter gaslighting Flip into not having hiccups. However, I couldn't find anything official to support my experience, and I didn't want to be giving out questionable medical advice, so I ended up cutting it. Again, link in the description to the unlisted video. Mathematical is far and away my most viewed video, and again, I cannot thank you enough. But that makes the glaring error at the start all the more embarrassing. As many of you in the comments pointed out, the primary school equation is the volume of a sphere, which is a bit advanced for the age group. I think I meant to use the area of a circle instead, but got confused somewhere along the way. Ultimately, I changed it to addition's commutative property for the compilation video. Business was probably the hardest episode to film, since in order to get the shot I wanted, I had to crouch behind Nova as I was puppeteering her. And since I couldn't see what the camera was seeing until after filming was complete, it took quite a few takes to get it right. Morality is another example of self-censorship, but this time the episode was just altered rather than pulled. Walter's poem at the end was originally, "When morals are questioned much more by a parson, the logical action is to commit arson." However, I decided that arson was a bit too serious to be joked about, so the poem was changed to be about bank robberies instead. I'd say the original poem was funnier and fit better, but I stand by my decision to change it. The idea to make Fluffy speak in subtitles too came from RD in the comments, who asked for a character to have a caveman voice. Fluffy has always been mute in my household, but I like the idea of him talking like a caveman only when he gets angry, so I figured it would be a perfect fit for once he completed the subtitles, but did it wrong in some way. Hash Browns was an episode made at the last minute because I initially planned to make ice cream. However, as it turns out, making homemade ice cream without a dedicated ice cream maker is really difficult. So after failing to make ice cream, I switched to something I've made before. I do still want to do an ice cream episode, but I'll want to get the recipe right first. Reading Whales was actually the first video to get a community guideline strike. Not for the video itself, mind you, but because I used hashtag sperm whale in the description, and TikTok didn't like that. The video is still up, but that hashtag has been deactivated. Pepper Poppers was actually recorded over multiple days because I realized during filming that I forgot to buy breadcrumbs. I shot making the cheese filling and filling the pot with oil on one day, with cutting, breading, stuffing, and frying the peppers being shot after I went out to buy breadcrumbs. And with that, we have reached the present. I hope you found some of these factoids interesting, and I'm excited to see what next year has in store. With all that said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again real soon.